This program is brought to you in part by SalCal Real Estate Connections. Yes, welcome to Race in Action Today. We're here today with special guest Cameron Varricchio, race truck driver and builder. And I'm kind of interested, Cameron, to know how we get this truck built. I mean, tell me all about how this all start. Did you ever... what made you start building a race truck to begin with?
So I started, this truck was pre-built. It was back when they did the American Racer. It's real old, it's real old, but it's gotten, over the years, got the updates and everything. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make it faster, so I just found different ways to make it faster. Yeah. So I would cut the cage apart and went from door bars to an X bar on the passenger side because it's loud. Yep. Then we wanted to get faster, so I ended up having to redid the entire body style. So I went from the old F-150 truck style that they did to the new style. And to me, it looks like a Ford Raptor. I think it's pretty cool. But in order to do that...
Now the body, is that like a plastic or fiberglass or steel?
So it's part fiberglass, part plastic, and aluminum.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. So the front and rear bumper cover, those are plastic, along with the fenders. The doors are aluminum. The truck bed and the quarters are aluminum. And then the only thing that's really fiberglass is going to be the roof.
Oh, wow. I would have never thought that. I would have thought the whole body would be fiberglass.
Yeah, so the old truck, my dad first put that truck together with with everybody, we went and it was almost all fiberglass. Yeah. The only thing it was plastic front rear bumper cover, plastic fenders, fiberglass roof, fiberglass doors, and fiberglass quarters. The only thing that was aluminum was the trunk lid. Mm-hmm. So
So you mean like the bed?
The top of the bed
was aluminum.
It was the only thing that was aluminum.
Well, that
else.
makes sense, Yeah.
Now
let's start from the beginning with this. It's got to have a chassis. Yeah. Do you make your chassis, or is it a standard production chassis? How does this work?
So it all very much depends on what route you want to go. I've seen a lot of guys put chassis together from 1988 Monte Carlos, about the same GM style, mm-hmm. Chassis. I've also seen guys go from that style of a chassis. They go to tubular chassis that are prefabbed or pre-made.
To a certain spec, right?
Yeah, to a certain spec. So the spec of those tubular chassis are the exact same spec as the standard GM chassis. The only thing that's really different is you don't have the stocky, the stock look of the chassis. It's more of a modern style.
So, there's square tubing or round tubing. So now, I got to ask you one question. In them time frame cars, they call something the metric chassis. You know which one that is? GM?
So the GM metric chassis are the older style chassis. They're going to be between, Honestly, I don't really remember. I just know that they're...
You mean like they're before 1980s?
Yeah, so the GM chassis that we use now are, the metric chassis are anywhere in the 80s. So I want to say anywhere from from the late 80s to back in the day, way back is when those were the metric chassis.
So they use the actual frame. I don't think they use the whole thing. It's like only to it back a certain way. Then from one point back, doesn't it turn into like tubular or something?
So depending, like I said, depends on how someone wants to go about it. I've put aftermarket front frame horns on a GM chassis. I've put half a rear clips into them. Mm-hmm. So the regular standard GM chassis, they're going to have everything the way it came off of the factory line. The only thing that they're going to put in there different are going to be how they put a front bumper, a rear bumper, and how they mount the body to it. is really the only thing that gets changed.
Now, are they all coil spring?
So they're all coil spring.
In the front and back?
Front and back, yep.
Okay. Now, they're not like a truck arm deal or nothing, are they, for the rear?
So the rear has 4 control arms. You have the uppers and the lower, uppers and lowers.
4-link, like a 4-link, right?
Yep.
Okay. Now, the chassis, you're saying that they even use the back end all the way back?
Yeah, so some guys use the entire car. Okay. Some of them will cut off that rear frame after the spring pockets, and they'll put tubes. Tube's a little bit easier to work with. You can just cut it off and replace it relatively easier.
Now, when you use the suspension, the coils, are they special?
So the springs we use, they're kind of a standard. They're a standard racing spring. They can also be used in the same kind of springs can be used in those cars if you want to drive them.
Yeah.
They're mostly the same. The only difference is we don't use leaf springs. We use regular standard coils. They're going to be about, like, some of us use 13-inch tall, some of us use 10-inch or 8-inch. It all depends on what route you're trying to go.
The different spring rate?
Yeah, so every spring has a different rating. Even if they make the same spring, so say you buy one of those springs and you get 8 of them, they could all spec out to a different number. The number that they put on that box is what it's intended to be. So like if you want like a 450 or a 500.
So you mean they'd be close to that?
They'll be close to that, but they're not going to be exact. Some springs will be a little bit stiffer by, a couple pounds, and some will be a little light. Some may be a little lighter at so many pounds.
To meet the requirements for your class, do they tell you up front what kind of shock you have to use or no?
So with the trucks at Waterford, they use, they say we can use anything that's less than pretty much $200. So that leaves a wide variety of shocks you can use. I know guys that use Bilstein. I know guys that use Coney shocks. They're all good shocks. Like,
they put a price limit.
Yes.
You cannot spend over this because you can spend crazy money on shocks.
You can spend thousands on shocks.
Yes.
But it all comes down to they do say that they have to be within a certain rule. They have to be within a certain rule book. You have to abide by it. So they can say, okay, you can buy this shock, but it can only be this. It can be not adjustable or something at that rate. It all depends on the track. Plus, it depends on track. A lot of the tracks are different rules. Like I know Stafford has a rule. It can be an adjustable. So if you're going in a late model, which is closest to a truck, they have to where you can buy. They have a list of springs you can use, shocks you can use, and they tell you what's allowed and what's not.
Yeah. Well, I know they're very particular sometimes. And spending a lot of money is the best way to go. I'll tell you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Learning to keep the thing affordable is a good thing. So you got the chassis. You know what you're going to use. Now, brake-wise, what do you do there?
So for most of the brake stuff, I use Wildwood. They've been around for a long time. They know what they're doing.
Use their rotor?
Yeah, so when I use Wildwood brake calipers, and I just use regular standard brake hubs.
Yeah.
You go to the parts store, you can tell them you want, for this certain year, this and that. Because you can run Camaro, you can run a couple different kind of setups in those. You can run Camaro or the regular GM. So you go there, you tell them what you want, and you just get that standard brake off the shelf. Now,
the calipers you're using, are they just 2-cylinder?
So they're actually a single cylinder, and they're just a standard GM brake caliper.
So 1-cylinder.
1-cylinder.
Okay. Are they expensive?
They're up there because of just the way pricing is, but they're pretty inexpensive.
Now, in the rear and the front, same
calipers.
Same caliper.
Same thing. Depends, but it also depends on. So like the Chevys use the Chevy calipers and Ford uses Ford. So if you have Chevy calipers in the front, you have to get the Ford style brake calipers for the rear.
Well, that makes sense, you know. And of course, the actual shoes, that's up to you too. You could use different hardnesses and
Yep.
right.
So you can use. So I've used anywhere from the Blackhawks. Blackhawk is a pretty good brake shoe, especially for the rotors. It doesn't eat them as bad, but I know guys that use Performance Friction, which is a much more expensive brake pad.
Does it last longer, or no, just give better grip?
A better grip. Sometimes, depending on how hard you're on them, will determine the life of them. Yeah. Plus the hardness. And
now, of course, there's a master cylinder. I'm sure you use a special hydraulic oil in there so it don't boil. Is that correct?
That is correct. So we use. There's a couple different ones that they have, but the one I use is 570, so it can withstand about 570 degrees.
Yes.
Then for like the SK Modifieds or something that runs a heavier brake or needs something, it heat up a lot faster, they have 600, so it goes up to above 600 degrees. I used a 570 because we're never going to get those brakes that hot. Yeah. Plus, it's a little bit less expensive, so you're not paying a lot more. And then I just use regular standard brake fluid for the clutch. You're not heating that up.
No, you're not going to heat that up. You got a slave cylinder, right, for operating the clutch. Now, that's a good thing. You're inside the car. How about the seat? Does that have to be something special?
So it depends on the driver, really. There's others that'll go for they want these real expensive seats.
They have all kinds. Recaro, Spafco, right?
Yeah,
Kirkley.
Yep. LaJoy. I know LaJoy seats are full containment seats. They're pretty expensive because they're just fitted to that one driver. So it takes time for them to build those.
So it's like a molded.
Yeah. So I think the way it is you go to the guy's shop. He fits you for whatever measurements he needs, and they build you a seat.
Yeah. So, but there's no specific one they make you use. They just got to pass a certain SF.
Yeah, the SFI.
FSI, like your driving suit, your uniform.
Yep, those have to be to a certain, depending on how many, they want like a 3-layer fire suit. Just the more layers, the more fire resistance.
Now, do you have to have a Hans device too?
So they say that you have to wear some kind of a neck brace. So I use a Hans device. I like those a little bit better. I'm claustrophobic, especially when it comes down to things around my neck. Mm-hmm. So I use the Hans device to keep it away from my neck area. Yeah. Just because it's a little harder breathing when you got a donut on your neck and then you're pulling your helmet down.
So if you don't have a Hans device, you could have like a donut.
Yeah, you have the donut. Just safety-wise, they just want you to have a full containment seat. Full containment seat meaning you got headrests, shoulder rests, ribs, and then legs. That's a full containment seat. When you go to strap in it, they want it to be where you're strapped in. That's it. You can't move. You move only a little bit, but not much at all.
Yeah, they don't want your arms flying out. Of course, you got a net to use, right?
Yeah, so you have to have a window net.
Yeah. Now, we didn't talk about the roll bar or or what do you call them?
The cages.
The cages. Are they to spec too, right? You got to make it a certain way.
Yeah, so each cage is going to be a little different. The way you make them is based on what you want. So if you want them to be a front-heavy car, you'll push to the front of the truck a little bit. Mm-hmm. You want it to be a back, want it to be more centered and even, you can push it to the back. It all really depends on what the builder wants. Say you're the builder, you want to do something. You can go into the book and see what they want, but you don't have to go to that. You don't have to abide by it. The only thing they want you to abide by is the
intrusion bars.
Yep, intrusion bars, intrusion plates, like the whole door bar. So I have door bars on my left side. Each of them have its own individual plate that's welded into it, and then it's not necessary to have, but there's about like an 1/8-inch thick piece of steel on the door bars, just as an intrusion where my seat is. Mm-hmm.
Well, they want you protected. They want nothing coming in to get you, and it happens. Let me tell you, it happens.
Yep, I've seen there was a red flag night. A guy in a mini stock was stuck in there. They cut all the doors. They cut the entire side of the car apart. They pulled him out. He had a couple broken legs.
Sure.
It was a hard hit.
Oh yeah.
You could hear it. You heard it, and you just knew it was bad.
Oh boy, yeah. So we got the cage squared away now, and we talked about the body. I think did it or no?
We did a little bit.
Yeah, we did. Okay.
Well, yeah.
So of course, then the body fits on there, nice. Now, when you set up the car, well, we didn't talk about tires. Let's start there before we go into setting up. What do you run for tires?
So the tires we're allowed to run are Hoosier 970s.
Mm-hmm. It's a spec tire.
There's a spec tire.
Everyone has to run.
Same tire. Yep. The only difference between tires is how much stagger size you want. So stagger is the difference between the left to the right tire.
Yeah, diameter, right?
Yeah, diameter-wise.
When you put more air in, the diameter grows, right?
And then if there's less air, the smaller
it gets smaller. So, and now these tires you're talking about, are they all the same hardness? Or are they softer? Or I mean, they're all the ones they tell you to get. Everyone's got to have the same hardness.
So all the tires they're made the same way. Some will be a little softer, some will be a little harder. Depends on how long they sit. They sit a long time, they lose some of the oils that are in there. The newer the tire, the more oil that's in there. They're softer. So the softness helps a little bit. You don't want hockey pucks because then you're driving all over the place. So yeah, in reality, the softer the tire, the better.
Yeah.
But they're all the same.
Now, when you look at tires, they're kind of judged on heat cycles. How many times did you get them hot?
Yep.
Determines whether the tire is going to be good or not, right?
Right. So
it's not really wear.
No, they don't really. It's funny that you say that because I've put Hoosier tires on trailers to get them home, and you measure them at the track. Say that they're 85 and 60 about like 85 inches. Drive it all the way home. You can measure it. I still have the same tire on the trailer. I've used it all year. Still the same size. It hasn't changed. So they don't wear out as much. It just depends on how hot you get them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was always told by the tire people, no matter what racing you're doing, it's really the amount of times that tire is heat cycled that judges how good it's going to work. If it has so many of heat cycles in its life, after when you go beyond that, then it's not they don't work the same.
Yeah, definitely. We see a difference in the tires. So like we'll scrub them in. So scrubbing them in just means you're gonna wake them up. You put them on the car. You're gonna scrub off the newness of it. You want to get them a little rough, and see, you'll measure them, mark them, get the pressures, see what it does. Rewrap them, let them sit for like a good week or two, and then put them back on the car, and it could be a whole different animal, or it could be way better.
Now, do you ever put on a substance to make them better? So, like paint on the special stuff?
So it's funny because a lot of people think that putting paint, the special stuff on them makes them better. We use those for the go-karts, but it's not allowed at Stafford or Waterford. They do not let you do any kind of chemical treatment to the tires.
Okay.
They check for that as well.
Yeah.
That's just a no-no. It's just you don't need some.
Do you ever see anybody using a heat blanket on a tire?
Not really. I've never really seen anyone use heat blankets. The only time I've seen anyone do anything was when they were scrub the excess rubber off just with a heat gun and a scraper, and that would be it. Well,
what's funny, Cameron? In the old days when we did novice racing, we used to buff the tire, grind it to get them smooth or rough, to grip better because they were street tires.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They were just your regular good old back in the day street tires. Yep.
Yeah.
With the go-karts, we do buff them, make them have grooves in it.
Yeah.
It helps grip dirt better. But with the regular track tires, we don't do anything special to them. Yeah. We just every time we use them, we just wrap them.
Now, are you allowed to put on a certain amount of new tires every week?
So they allow you to set an X amount of tires into inventory based on that week. So they'll say you go to Stafford, you could get a couple sets. You could get beginning of the year. I think you're allowed up to like 6 tires or 2 full sets. And that goes in your inventory. That's what you get that week. That's it. You can use it for however long you want. You can have them. You can do whatever you want with them. Just don't put the special paint on them because if they find out, you get in trouble. Yeah. It all depends.
Are they expensive? Number one.
Tires do get expensive depending on the class. I pay just about $200 a tire for a truck. And that we at the beginning of the year can buy up to 6 tires. So it does put a good kind of gap in the pocket.
But do you use them up that quick?
It depends really on how hard you use the tire on the track. It depends. You could use them up. I've seen guys use the same tires for 3-4 weeks. Yeah. Then I've seen guys use a full set for 5-6 weeks, but they fall off after 5 or 6 weeks because of how many heat cycles.
Heat cycle. Oh yeah.
Going back to heat cycles, it depends on how much you are running them, how hard you're using them. Mm-hmm. You can't. If you abuse them, they're gonna fall off. If you be nice to them and let them be nice, ease on to everything and come up, they'll be all right. But the second you beat on them, you're just kicking a dead horse.
Well, you see in a race, you've heard the term that they're saving their tires because they're not pushing because they want the tire to last the whole race.
Yes. So a lot of guys will go about the first half of the race. Mm-hmm. They'll just lay back, be nice and easy. They're going to keep up with the front of the pack, but they're not going to be, going into the corner 10 men deep and trying to do something and overwork your right side or even overwork your left.
Now, which would you say wears out the quickest, the right front?
Actually, the right rear.
Right rear.
Yep.
You're coming off
the corner. You're driving.
You're spinning them.
Depends on the setup and depends on how hard you get to the throttle. You will.
Okay. Now, when you set the car up, you're doing 2 things. You're doing ride height, right?
Yep.
And stagger. Or no stagger.
So
toe in, toe out.
So there's actually a lot that goes into setting up a car.
I know.
Yeah. So when we do setup, you base everything off your stagger and air pressures. So say you're gonna do 2 inches of stagger in the rear, you have to have 2 inches of stagger when you set it up. Mm-hmm. Then when you're on the scale pad, you measure everything on the scales, and then you'll determine how high you can go or how low you can go for. Wanting to make that, you leave a little bit of a gap. That way you have a little bit of wiggle room to get by if you need to. But then when you're setting everything up, you're looking at cross, you're looking at front to rear, you're looking at just every little bit.
Toe in or toe out in the front, is that a standard thing or do you fool with that? So
each driver's different. Depending on how they want, it will be different. So some guys like a little bit of toe out on the left. So a lot of guys only do toe out on the left. Mm-hmm. You don't really touch the right.
Okay.
Reason being is you want the right side to be square to the rear. Yeah. That keeps it going straight down the straightaway. The left side, we've always done between a 16th or I've done as much as maybe 3/16 out.
Well. Now, I didn't talk about camber at all. Is that a standard thing? You'd like -3 or -5 or?
So you're gonna look into caster camber.
Yeah.
You're gonna also look into anti-dive.
Now that's up to you. You're not being told what to do.
Right.
That's up to you what you want to do.
Right. So your setup is based off what you want. You can have a certain, so the way that the tracks are, they tell you that you're allowed to have a certain left side percentage, and you have to weigh, say, you have a weight limit. You can weigh 2985, or you can weigh 3,000. As long as you're over the weight limit, you're okay. The second you go underneath that weight limit, it's a no-no. They tell you what you're allowed to use based off of, setting everything up, but they'd only give you a couple of setup rules. They don't really tell you what to do.
Yeah,
it's everything yourself.
So camber and caster, you could do what you want. You could fool with that.
Yep.
Now, I got to ask you a question. Do you ever fool with camber in the rear? That camber is this way, not that way.
Yeah, I was trying to remember because I mix them up all the time. Even though I'm around it, I always forget. No, you really don't, because the rears that you have,
the big guys do though.
Yeah, up top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Especially because I don't have a third link. I have regular 4-link. Mm-hmm. Those things can really only do so much. You can only thing you can touch with the rear is really how far the pinion angle.
Yeah.
Really the only thing you can change.
Yeah, and that's good to kind of dial traction in. Sometime, not all the time.
Nope.
Sometimes
too much.
Yeah.
So putting too much is not the right direction.
So we cover just about everything on the car, and now, of course, you have to make spec and go through tech and all that, and it's really been interesting to talk about how you put a car together, because I have not fooled with that in a while.
Yeah.
Of course, the higher classes, they make their own chassis, and it's wide open. They have to do certain things for safety, but they also fool around, I'm sure, with distribution of weight and stuff.
Yeah. Weight distribution is huge. Just having that couple extra 100 pounds on a tire, or having the car, a little bit more, a little bit less everywhere, makes a big difference.
Yeah. Well, as usual, buddy, when time flies, we're having fun. And we want to thank you for being here today.
Of course.
Cameron, you've been excellent. And thank the viewers for watching. And don't forget, you go to Waterford Speed Bowl, you look for number 54 truck. And I'm sure you're going to be pleased with what you see. We want to thank you, and good night.
Step into our store and discover a stunning array of dancewear. Introducing Dancingly Yours, your one-stop shop for all things dance and delight for ages 2 to 92. From tiny tutus to energetic tap shoes, our store is a treasure trove of dance essentials. At Dancingly Yours, we offer an extensive collection of dancewear and accessories that cater to all styles and levels. We carry top brands and the latest fashion trends. From ballet to hip-hop, lyrical to jazz, ballroom to liturgical, as well as gymnastics, you'll find the best selection right here at Dancingly Yours. But we're not just a store. We're a community that celebrates the joy of dance. Our expert team is passionate about dance, just like you. So we're here to assist you in finding the perfect fit. And the best part, Dancingly Yours offers competitive pricing in-store and online. Dancingly Yours, easy to get to and worth the trip from anywhere, right on Route 10 in Plainville.